Testing. The July 6, 2021 legislative meeting of the Anne Arundel County Council is now in session. I would like to take a moment to welcome everyone back into the chambers. Please note that we are abiding by the recommended guidance of the CDC and the county executive regarding masks. If you feel safer wearing your mask, please do not hesitate to do so. Council members, I'll have some reminders and explainers of procedure that we'll be following tonight as we're transitioning to being both Zoom and in person. And I ask everyone for appropriate levels of grace as we do anything that's goofy, during the meeting. Hopefully you'll understand why. All right, now please pause or stand for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Ms. Pickard. It's the first bit of goofiness. This is where we have done both things at the same time, but not before. Sorry.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. May we listen to one another intently with the purpose of bettering ourselves and our community. May we humbly accept the responsibilities assigned to us. May we carry out these responsibilities to the best of our capabilities. And now for the pledge.
Ms. Pickard has a citation to present to a constituent.
Thank you. I would like to ask Mr. William Shorter to join me at the podium. Is that the microphone? Yes, it is. Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Mr. Shorter, for joining us. As a matter of introduction, Mr. Shorter is the current chairman of the Board of Trustees of the Anne Arundel County Public Library System, and he is the recent recipient of the United for Libraries Award, the ALA Trustee Citation, which has been only given to 5 Marylanders since it's first awarded in 1940, and Will is also represents the library for District 2, and I'm very proud of him. But he was nominated and for initiating a review of Board of Governance, which led to the restructuring of the board committees and meeting schedules, advising the board cybersecurity committee, which led to the recovery of the library's IT infrastructure, and participation in the naming of the Michael E. Bush Annapolis Library. Mr. Shorter is certainly a trailblazer and demonstrates the power and opportunity for our institutions in welcoming new generations of leaders into library governance. I'm extremely proud of Mr. Shorter, and the council is recognizing his award with a citation. And it states, the Anne Arundel County Council would like to recognize you being named the recipient of the 2021 American Library Association Trustee Citation. Your dedication to public libraries is extraordinary, including being elected Anne Arundel County Public Library Board of Trustee Chair in June 2020, the youngest Board of Trustees Chairman in the United States at age 23. Your contribution of time and energy is noteworthy of praise, and the County Council wishes to recognize your success now and in your future endeavors. It is signed by the entire council. Thank
you. Thank you, Ms. Pickard. Madam Secretary, please read the ethics statement.
The Ethics Commission has asked that I advise you that under certain circumstances, members of the public may qualify as lobbyists when they testify before the County Council. If so, the law requires that certain information be filed with the Ethics Commission. The Chair of the Ethics Commission has asked that those who wish to testify in any form review the general information on lobbying sheet located on the Ethics website under Forms and Publications. If there are any questions about lobbying requirements, please contact the Ethics Commission at 410-222-4413.
Thank you. We will now open our invitation to audience. Madam Secretary, do we have any comments or communications on any subject not included in the printed agenda received from members of the public?
No, Madam Chair, we did not receive any testimony for this particular part of the meeting ahead of time.
Thank you. We will now invite members of the audience who signed up before the meeting to address the council briefly on any subject not included in the printed agenda. Remarks will be limited to 2 minutes. First on the list is Kevin Curran.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Certainly. My name's Kevin Kern. I reside at 404 Wildberry Court in Millersville. I'm here today because of a situation at Compass Point Golf Courses. Compass Point issues annual passes for weekday membership, which I have had for a number of years. That is Monday through Friday. This year, I went to make a reservation for July 5th with Mr. Michael Seneca, who is the manager for Compass Point Golf, which is an Indigo Partners, an agent and subcontractor. I have copies of my correspondence, which I sent to Mrs. Fiedler today. If you'll turn one page to the letter that I wrote to the Director of Recreation and Parks, I brought to her attention that the contract agreement that members have, weekday members have, for Compass Point includes articles under General Bullet 5. 5-day annual passes are not valid for Labor Day, 4th of July, and Memorial Day. Doesn't say anything about July 5th. Doesn't say anything about the 4th of July as observed. Okay? The agreement and the contract that I and other members have is very clearly stated, and I was denied the ability to make a reservation for July 5th. And I was not the only member. Now, I wrote this letter to Park and Recs on June 29th. I'm outraged that it wasn't answered. I'm outraged that it was ignored. And I hold Mr. Stuart Pittman responsible for not having his people address this letter. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Curran. The invitation to audience is now closed. Is there any item any council member would like to place on the agenda? This is where I'll tell you that today I'm going to ask you to hold up your flag if you want to speak, in part because you could also just say, Madam Chair, but we do not have this old setup with all the mics and the lights in front of me, so Madam Secretary will be helping out with that too. So I'll try to call everyone equitably. I just can't see you the same way, and it's very awkward for me, so apologies. Ms. Hare.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to be added as a co-sponsor, please, to Resolution 3621.
So noted. Anyone else?
I want to be added as a co-sponsor to Bill 6121.
That would be Ms. Pickard for the record. Anyone else?
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
I would like to be added as a co-sponsor to Bill 5921.
And that was Ms. Fiedler, who I should have also acknowledged. This is so different. I can't tell you how different this is from 6 months of chairing this on Zoom and not ever doing it here live in person, so apologies. I'll get over myself soon. Okay, may I have a motion that the partial reading of any bill, resolution, amendment to a bill or resolution, or minutes constitutes the reading of the whole?
So moved, Councilman Peruski.
Second?
Second, Allison Pickard.
All in favor, say aye. 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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Madam Secretary, please read the minutes of June 21st, 2021.
Minutes of June 21st, 2021. The meeting was called to order by Chair Sarah Lacey at 6 p.m. Ms. Lacey gave the invocation and led the Pledge of Allegiance. The meeting was held remotely via Zoom webinar, beginning with a roll call of all present.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of June 21st, 2021?
Motion to adopt, Councilman Peruski.
Second?
Second, Allison Pickard.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. The minutes of June 21st, 2021 stand approved as read. Madam Secretary, please read the titles of any bills to be introduced this evening.
Bill number 6721, an ordinance concerning public ethics, financial disclosure, legislative counsel to the county council.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, please read the titles of any resolutions to be introduced this evening.
Resolution number 3521, resolution approving estimates of the annual costs of providing health insurance benefits and the employer subsidies used to determine the rates for certain participants under the County Employee and Retiree Health Benefits Program. Resolution number 3621, resolution in support of the County Executive of Anne Arundel County promptly entering into an agreement with Robert A. Pascal Youth and Family Services, Inc. to lease and make fully available county-owned property located at 41 Community Place in Crownsville, Maryland.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Before we move to the bills, I wanted to take a second to also let everyone know that it used to be, before COVID, that we would have 9 chairs up here. That would include our legislative counsel, Ms. Schuett, and also our county auditor, Ms. Bolair. And since we need to abide by the spacing, we had to remove their seats, and so they are seated sort of in the well of the council, so to speak, along with Ms. Corby. But everyone in the whole room is really, but especially for them, since you're not, we're not all that close together. If you for whatever reason you need to, stand up and go be somewhere else, get fresh air, whatever, we'll just call on you when we need you. But if you're not there, it doesn't mean you're not here. So I just wanted everyone to know that's also different today. Okay, we'll move on to the order of items. May I have a motion to suspend the rules to hear and vote on Bill number 5721 out of order and first this evening?
So moved, Councilman Peruski.
Is there a second?
Second, Allison Pickard.
Please call the roll, Madam Secretary.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volke.
Aye.
Mr. Peruski.
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Hare.
Aye.
Ms. Lacey.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. The motion to suspend the rules to hear and vote on Bill number 5721 out of order and first this evening has been passed.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 5721.
Bill number 5721, an ordinance concerning the issuance, sale, and delivery of Anne Arundel County, Maryland general obligation bonds and bond anticipation notes.
All right, this evening we have Mr. Trumbauer for the administration. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Council, Chris Trumbauer, for the administration. I'd like to thank the Council for taking this bill out of order since we have bond counsel with us, and I'll ask Mr. Henn and Ms. McQuaid to come on up if you wouldn't mind. We're working out some kinks too on this side, first day back. So, but while they're coming up, I'll just remind you, this is the annual bond bill ordinance. You see this every year. Mr. Henn will be able to tell you all about it in much greater detail than I ever could. We will have an amendment at the appropriate time to true up the numbers with what was passed in the FY22 budget. So with that, I'll introduce to my right Ms. McQuaid, the controller, and Mr. Henn, Bill Henn, bond counsel, and whichever of you wants to take it from here, I will pass the baton.
Members of the council, very pleased to join you today for the first time in a long time, I guess. You have before you the annual bond authorization ordinance. It is in the customary form for this document. The annual bond ordinance is a document that is contemplated in the charter and is routinely adopted in the course of the county's fiscal proceedings. The annual bond ordinance authorizes, in its current form, in the form introduced, in excess of $1 billion in general obligation bonds and $500 million in bond anticipation notes. The ordinance makes appropriate findings in accordance with the requirements of the charter, demonstrating the amount of debt is within the debt limitations applicable to the county. The ordinance makes a general obligation pledge to pay the indebtedness authorized pursuant to the ordinance, subject to the property tax limitations in the county charter. In addition, with respect to self-liquidating debt, the county also pledges to operate the self-liquidating systems in a manner so that they are self-sufficient. The ordinance goes on to authorize refunding bonds to refund listed outstanding general obligation debt of the county, which is itemized on Exhibit 2 of the ordinance. That authority is limited to 120% of the principal amount of the bonds being refunded, which actually is consistent with achieving savings, believe it or not, with the magic of how the arbitrage rules work. And in any event, the refunding bonds may only be issued under the ordinance to achieve savings. The ordinance prescribes the form of the bonds. It requires public sale of the bonds for the so-called new money bonds, which is the primary purpose of the ordinance. The other forms of indebtedness are permitted but not required to be sold on a negotiated basis pursuant to the provisions of state law. So, for instance, refunding bonds may either be sold competitively or they may be sold in a negotiated fashion. The bond anticipation note provisions of the ordinance allow the issuance of straightforward bond anticipation notes, but also bond anticipation notes in the form of commercial paper and variable rate demand obligations. The ordinance also provides that bonds authorized for the support of water and sewer in the county may also be issued in the form of a loan from the Maryland Water Quality Financing Authority in a format prescribed by the state agency pursuant to that state program. Finally, the ordinance in its form repeals the prior bond authorization ordinance that was adopted last year, subject, of course, to saving and protecting the outstanding indebtedness that has been issued pursuant to prior authority. With that, I will be open to any questions or any comments of Mr. Trombauer or Ms. McQuaid.
Thank you very much. Mr. Pruski?
Mr. Henn, it's always good to see you. It's my 7th year listening to your bond. I was going to say, since we moved you up in the program, can you get us some lower rates? But I do want to ask you a question, though, because, again, you're in this business and you obviously do analysis throughout the year. There's concern about inflation right now, and of course I know we're looking at the current bill and where we're at, but do you have any comments about that, something that we really should consider towards the future, because that's really a major concern for everybody, but I don't know if you have any thoughts, particularly to the bond market as we move forward. Obviously we're within our realm, but I just want to hear if you had any thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, that's not to totally beg off, but also not to get into trouble with my partners. That's really a financial advisory issue, and the county does have financial advisors very capable and longstanding, and actually under the Dodd-Frank rules, I cannot comment directly on matters of financial advisory advice. I would point out, having said that I understand the concern that you have. The ordinance that you have is interesting. It's organic over the years, and there are substantial provisions in the ordinance that we, haven't had to dust off for a number of years, dealing with bond anticipation notes, commercial paper, and variable rate demand obligations. The county has used some, but not all of that authority in the past. When interest rates start moving up, this ordinance puts the county in position to adjust immediately to that changing interest rate provision without having to, come back and wait, however many, weeks it would take to authorize the latest bell and whistle. So I would say we are, from a legal authorization point of view, I think you're in very good shape. The smartest thing to do for a number of years has been to issue, low rate, long-term fixed rate debt. And I think that's still, giving a little bit of a financial commentary here, the market's still there on that point, but certainly it could change.
Absolutely. Well, it's good that the county, obviously, with their bond ratings from the agencies, also match that. So again, I think you answered my question. I just wanted to make sure. And I didn't want you to break any Dodd-Frank rules either, so thank you. Good to see you.
Good. Especially not on the record, on Zoom, and on TV. I mean, I would be gone in a hurry.
Well, let's not have that. Does anyone else have a question? Okay. We will now open the public hearing on Bill number 5721. Madam Secretary, do we have any testimony received from members of the public?
No, Madam Chair, we did not receive any submissions of testimony ahead of time.
We will now open the public hearing. We did not have anyone sign up just before the meeting, but if there's anyone who wishes to speak now, you may come forward. Seeing lots of people leaping from their seats, the public hearing on Bill number 5721 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 5721.
Bill number 5721, an ordinance concerning the issuance, sale, and delivery of Anne Arundel County, Maryland general obligation bonds and bond anticipation notes.
We do have an amendment. Madam Secretary, please read amendment number 1.
Amendment number 1. This amendment decreases the amount of bond authority and corrects certain amounts in the bill to conform to the final capital budget.
Thank you. The administration, Mr. Trumbauer, would you like to make a statement?
Perhaps we'll adopt it, and then I'll make a statement, Madam Chair.
Actually, our rules are that the sponsor of an amendment may make a brief statement first.
Oh, fantastic.
And then we move to adopt.
Excellent. I didn't want to get out too far in front of the gate, but I'll gladly take that opportunity. Chris Trumbauer with the administration. As advertised, this just trues up the numbers according to what was actually passed in the budget. So it ends up reducing the total amount of bond obligations. So I think that's something you guys can all get behind. And we have my partners here for any detailed questions you may have at the appropriate time.
Is there a motion to adopt?
Motion to adopt, Councilman Peruski.
Is there a second?
Second, Allison Pickard.
And is there any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, please call the roll on amendment number 1.
Ms. Pickard?
Aye.
Mr. Volkey?
Aye.
Mr. Pruski?
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler?
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian?
Aye.
Ms. Hare?
Aye.
Ms. Lacey?
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Amendment number 1 has been adopted.
Thank you. Bill number 5721 as amended will be heard on July 19th, 2021. Thank you for coming.
Very pleased.
Next, we have Bill number 4921 as amended. Madam Secretary, please read the title of that bill.
Bill number 4921, an ordinance concerning zoning requirements for special exception uses, assisted living facilities.
This is Ms. Pickard's and Mr. Volkey's bill. Whichever of you would like to speak first may.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Allison Pickard, District 2. As the co-sponsor with Mr. Volke, I'll make a brief statement about Bill number 4921, as it has been discussed at length in other council meetings. But for the public that is here in the audience and watching at home, this bill thought I'd turn that off. Nothing like some Indigo Girls. Excuse me. So the bill updates and modernizes the Anne Arundel County Code as it relates to assisted living facilities. Currently, the code only allows for an assisted living facility by special exception to be a multifamily structure. This bill would add the opportunity to create a community, an assisted living community with a multifamily structure with your congregate living, and also add small 1,250 square foot cottages to make a more modern opportunity for assisted living and for residents of Anne Arundel County to age in place in keeping with market trends. The bill has been successfully amended, and I urge everyone's support. I don't know if my colleague has anything he wants to add.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm so used to saying my name before I go. All right, I echo a lot of what Councilwoman Pickard said, and I appreciate the input from Office of Planning and Zoning and Office of Law, who have been involved helping us to draft this bill. I think that we have reached a place where we on the council hopefully will be comfortable with it, and I think it's very workable for the community that will be able to take advantage of this. So I would hope everyone can support it.
Mr. Trumbauer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chris Trumbauer for the administration. I'm joined at the table by Deputy CAO Lori Rhodes. We have Kelly Kinney from Law. We have Lynn Miller from OPZ. And in the overflow seating, we have our planning director, Stephen Kai Ziegler. They're here to answer any questions. But as the sponsors indicated, a lot of work has gone into this bill. Administration appreciates the previous amendments and working with staff. The administration does support the bill. I will acknowledge that OPZ staff do have some continuing discomfort about some of the provisions, but the administration will commit to work with the council as this bill, should it pass, is implemented, and continue to monitor that and address anything going forward as needed. But we support the bill, look forward to continuing to work with the council to update our code to reflect the county's growing need for diverse housing options for our aging population. And if any of my colleagues have any other comments, I'll turn over to them, or we're all available for questions.
Does anyone have any questions? Okay. We will now open the public hearing on Bill number 4921 as amended. Madam Secretary, do we have any testimony received from members of the public?
No, Madam Chair. We did not receive any submissions of testimony ahead of time.
All right, and we also did not have anyone sign up on the sign-up sheet, but this is your opportunity. If you did not sign up and wish to speak, you would have 2 minutes to say everything you think about this bill. Nobody wishes to speak. I don't know why. Okay. The public hearing on Bill number 4921 as amended is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 4921 as amended.
Bill number 4921, an ordinance concerning zoning requirements for special exception uses, assisted living facilities.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, please call the roll on Bill number 4921 as amended.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volke.
Aye.
Mr. Pruski.
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Hare.
Aye.
Ms. Lacey.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Bill number 4921 as amended is passed.
Thank you very much. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 5421.
Bill number 5421, an ordinance concerning finance, taxation, and budget community benefit program grants for councilmanic districts.
Mr. Volke, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we discussed this bill at the last meeting, and there was a motion to hold the bill at that time. I have not received any additional feedback from the administration or any of my colleagues on it, so hopefully the bill as written meets everyone's concerns and sort of addresses them. The history of it is basically this comes out of the county executive's transition report. After he was elected, there were a series of transition reports that were prepared. One of them was on responsive government, and this was one of the recommendations, that there be a pot of money set aside in the budget for each council-manic district to be able to access and potentially use for projects in their district that they saw were important and that they would like to ask the county executive to fund. Certainly that capacity already exists, and you can certainly lobby the county executive to include things in his budget, but this is a sort of slightly different mechanism that allows that to be in the budget itself, and if the county executive elects to fund it, then we could go to him and say, this is what we'd like to see funded. So hopefully all the questions that people had last time were answered, but if not, happy to answer them.
Mr. Trumbauer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chris Trumbauer for the administration. Frankly, the administration doesn't really love this bill, but it's a policy decision. If the council wants to add this provision, we will do our best to accommodate it. But I do feel compelled to point out a couple things about it. First, just to remind the council, and I know you are all very familiar with this, but the most recent budget did include $1.8 million of community grant program funding. So that was an enhanced amount. So we would like to continue that enhanced amount, at least as long as there are enhanced needs due to the COVID crisis. This would potentially add additional funding to the budget, and I do note that at least at some points during the budget process, the sponsor wanted the budget to be less, not more, so that is a little interesting to us. But really, we're comfortable, and I hope that the council is comfortable with the current community grant program because it is vetted. Those grants do go through an application process. There is an oversight committee, and so the whole intent of that was to take the politics out of those decisions, and those recommendations are placed in the budget. And of course, the council does have the ability, to modify those or cut amounts as needed. So I don't believe lobbying the county exec is the best way to get into the community grant program. You have to apply and you have to get selected. But with that, this is a policy decision of the council, and we will defer to whether you guys want this new power and new appropriation in the budget.
Thank you. As a reminder, the public hearing on Bill number 5421 was concluded at our last meeting. Therefore, now is the last chance to discuss the bill. Anyone? I think we were a lot more likely to make comments on Zoom. Okay.
Madam Chair,
Ms. Pickard.
Allison Pickard, District 2. Thank you. I had many concerns at the last meeting, and it was interesting that the community grants program that currently exists, while not statutory, I've had a chance to work with nonprofits in my district to make sure that they understand the application process over the last 3 years, but also working with the local development council and that process, since some of my district falls into their catchment area. I particularly am more comfortable with the process that the administration has set up for community grants. I think I noted at the last meeting that I would feel like, as a council member, having to select different nonprofits would be like picking my favorite child. There's too many, and I don't feel comfortable with that. So I'm still, I'm just more comfortable with the way the community grants program is administered, and I think it is a more fair, less political, and it keeps me personally out of trouble with all of my wonderful nonprofits in my district. So I'd like to stick with the way we do business currently. And so that's, I don't really have a question. It's more of an explanation of my no vote coming up.
Anyone else? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, please call the roll on Bill number 5421.
Ms. Pickard?
Nay.
Mr. Volke?
Aye.
Mr. Pruski?
Nay.
Ms. Fiedler?
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian?
Nay.
Ms. Hare?
Aye.
Ms. Lacey?
Nay.
3 in the affirmative, 4 in the negative. Bill number 5421 has been defeated.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill Number 5821.
Bill number 5821, an ordinance concerning payment in lieu of taxes, Park View at Furnace Branch, Glen Burnie, Maryland.
Mr. Trumbauer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chris Trumbauer with the administration. I'm joined at the table by our ACDS Director, Kathy Koch. And I think we will also have our controller momentarily, Ms. McQuaid. So this is just authorize a payment in lieu of taxes agreement between the county and RF Furnace Branch LLC. They are the new ownership that's purchasing and renovating the Park View at Furnace Branch. So this is a 101-unit multifamily development. Ms. Koch can tell you a lot more about that, but I will just say to the council that this has been the subject to a pilot agreement under 2 previous owners dating back all the way to fiscal year 2002. So this is just an update to the pilot based on this new ownership. You can find the terms in Exhibit A. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Koch to inform you of any other relevant details.
Good evening, Madam Chairman and members of the County Council. It's really nice to see you all. As Chris said, I'm Kathy Koch, the Executive Director for Arundel Community Development Services, which is the county's housing and community development agency. And don't have a whole lot more to add to what Chris has said, but Bill 5821 requests your support of this pilot. And what this pilot does is that it ensures that the affordability of this complex will be extended for another 20 years, so from this day forward, another 40 years. And also it allows for the acquisition and the rehabilitation and stabilization of our existing supply of affordable housing, especially for our seniors, which is, it's just as important to add new, but it's very, very important to stabilize our existing supply. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions? Ms. Hare?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Koch, thank you so much for spending quite a long time with me on the phone on this bill a couple of weeks ago. My biggest concern with this bill is essentially we're redoing a deal that was done. It's my understanding that the deal that was originally struck back in 2002, 2003 was a 40-year term, and so that deal is not yet up. And so there is a payment in lieu of taxes that should be paid currently, and it's 4% increase each year, but this new deal essentially would give even a further credit on the taxes for the new owner. And I guess my question is, it would make more sense to me for the new owner to just take on the deal that the old owner had, which to my understanding has happened in several other instances around the county.
Well, if the property changes hands, our pilot agreement requires that it actually has to come back to the county council. So there's been some it's real estate, just like all real estate across the county. Lots of changes happen throughout the term of any financing. So although the term of the original financing was for 40 years, it's structured in such a way that a lot of the investors and a lot of the members of it can come out after the 15th year. So you see this happening in a lot of real estate deals. And because of that, there's an increased cost in acquisition and an increased cost in the rehabilitation that needs to be done to the unit. So the way to make this affordable is by reducing it by that, just a little over $14,000 per year, and it allows the new owner to go to receive a first mortgage and be able to meet their underwriting standards in order to make that work. And it wouldn't work at that full dollar amount.
Right, I understand. But so I guess my question is, why is it that, maybe the purchase price could have adjusted, maybe some other variable in this whole deal could have adjusted, but we're kind of coming in at the very end and asking the council to adjust the payment in lieu of taxes even further. Whereas you and I had discussed a couple of projects elsewhere in the county where a new buyer comes in and the payment in lieu of taxes amount has not changed. Even though they come back before the council, they have taken on the payment from the previous owner.
The ones that have changed hands, they've changed the managing or the managing partner, and those have not come back before the council. The one that did come back before the council actually changed its dollar amount.
Okay, but the ones that changed the managing partner have not come back before. They just went on with the previous financing agreement.
Because they're totally different financial deals.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair.
Ms. Pickard.
Oh, is your flag up?
You will, Ms.
Oh, no.
Go ahead, Mr. Volkey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Quick question. So I note that this pilot was approved in August of 2002, and I note that we've had 2 prior pilots for affordable housing that have come in front of this council, I believe in 2019, another one in 2020. In the interim, between that time, approximately end of 2002 until 2019, are you aware of any pilots that were approved by the other county councils that were sitting during that time for affordable housing?
Yes, I believe, I don't know if it happened between 2003 and now, but there's approximately 16 pilots that exist in the county for affordable housing.
Madam Chair, if I may just ask.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Brief follow-up. And those were after 2002, 2003 timeframe?
No, I do not know that.
You don't know that? Okay.
I'd have to check that. Yeah.
Ms. Pickard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Allison Pickard, District 2. Do we still have to say that? Oh. So Ms. Koch and I had the opportunity to speak last week, as I had a lot of questions as well regarding this deal. This housing community is in my district. 101 units serving our elderly population. It's in one of the interesting things that I think it's important for everyone to note is the financial structure around this new, the new owners is they have 9% tax credits versus 4%. And do I have that imposed?
Yes.
Sorry, they have 4% tax credit rather than 9%, which means they're not obligated to provide housing for anyone under the 60% average median income. But they're choosing to maintain the model of the previous owners, which means they are reserving specific units for those at 30%, 40%, and 50%, which are our most hardest to house. And so while we are giving up $14,000 of annual tax revenue with this pilot, we are gaining and maintaining valuable housing for our most vulnerable population. This council has approved lots of property tax credits for different special interest groups, public safety, veterans, spousals, We have about 16 or 17 personal property tax credits. This one seems to be a pretty good deal to me. I would urge my colleagues to maintain the housing. These projects are very fragile financially, but they are a huge asset to our most vulnerable citizens in Anne Arundel County, and they don't come along very often. We have not, if you look through how many units we have brought on board in the last 30 years, it's pretty low. We get 50 here and there, and maintaining these 101 units is incredibly important, and I think it's a good deal, so thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Volkey, you might put your flag down.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Did I already do the public hearing? I did not? Okay, good. Well then, we will now open the public hearing on Bill number 5821. Madam Secretary, do we have any testimony received from members of the public?
No, Madam Chair, we did not receive any submissions of testimony ahead of time.
Thank you, and we do not have anyone signed up to speak unless you leap up now. The public hearing on Bill number 5821 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 5821.
Bill number 5821, an ordinance concerning payment in lieu of taxes, Park View at Furnace Branch, Glen Burnie, Maryland.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, please call the roll on Bill number 5821.
Ms. Pickard?
Aye.
Mr. Volkey?
Nay.
Mr. Prusky?
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler?
Nay.
Ms. Rodvian?
Aye.
Ms. Hare?
Nay.
Ms. Lacey?
Aye.
4 in the affirmative, 3 in the negative. Bill number 5821 is passed.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 5921.
Bill number 5921, An ordinance concerning public safety, traffic, vehicles on public sidewalks.
Mr. Trumbauer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chris Trumbauer with the administration. I think I'll have some colleagues joining at the table momentarily. As they join, I'll go ahead and walk through the initial talking points and turn over to them for questions. But the council may be aware, but this legislation came from a recommendation for our Bike Commission. And under current state law, riding bicycles on sidewalks is illegal unless it's allowed by a local ordinance. In our code right now, we do allow bicycles to be ridden on sidewalks, but only where they're designated as permitted. So what this bill does is it essentially flips that script, and it will allow riding on sidewalks except for where it is prohibited. So it also cleans up a provision within the same section of the code regarding riding golf carts on sidewalks, so we can conform with current state law. At the appropriate time, we will have a technical amendment, but I've stalled long enough that I can introduce the colleagues here. So we have from police on my right, Major Simpson, I think. And let's see, we have Central Services, Nicole, Ms. Leining? Ms. Leining. See, I haven't met all of these people because we've been virtual for so long. This is new for me too. And then we have our Transportation Director, Ramon Robinson, in the overflow seating, along with Ms. Lori Blair Klassmeyer from Office of Law. So do any of you have additional remarks that you want to make to the council? No? Okay, we're here to take any questions you may have.
Does anyone have a question? All right, you'll gather your thoughts. We will now open the public hearing on Bill number 5921. Madam Secretary, do we have any testimony received from members of the public?
Yes, Madam Chair. We received one submission through our online testimony tool. Actually, it was emailed and added to the list. It's been posted to the website. It is now part of the official record.
Thank you. And I do believe we have a sign up in advance. Mr. John Corrin, please join us at the podium there and state your name and address for the record. You'll have 2 minutes.
Thank
and there's
you.
a timer right down on the table.
Thank you, Madam Chair. John Corrin, 125 Hillcrest Lane, Severna Park, Maryland. I'm president of Bicycle Advocates for Annapolis and Anne Arundel County, and all volunteer 501c3 promoting safe cycling for transportation and recreation. I also chair the Anne Arundel County Bike Commission, and I sit on the Anne Arundel County Transportation Commission. Usually we're passing laws to change behavior for public safety. Here we already have safe practice. People ride their bikes on sidewalks because they're trying to get to A and B without getting hit by a car. So here we have a case where we're simply aligning the law with county policy, which promotes biking and walking through Move Anne Arundel. With county enforcement, no police officer is going to arrest somebody for riding on a sidewalk unless they're doing so dangerously, and this new statute would provide for that. So I'm really here just to answer any questions.
Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
The public hearing on Bill number 5921 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 5921.
Bill number 5921, an ordinance concerning public safety, traffic, vehicles on public sidewalks.
Is there any more discussion now? Mr. Volke.
Here. Thank you, Madam Chair. How many citations are we issuing from the police department on this issue? I mean, do you all ever give out citations for this? I can't even remember it. Okay. That was kind of my question was, are we giving citations for people riding bicycles on sidewalks? Is that a common thing? And I guess the other question would be, do we see from a risk management standpoint that we're paying out claims for people who are injured riding bicycles on sidewalks?
No, risk management isn't seeing claims coming from that. Most of the sidewalks that people ride on tend to be owned by neighborhoods or owned by commercial ventures. They're not actually county sidewalks. So I can't think of any in the 3 years that I've been with the county that I've seen any.
Ms. Rodvian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Lisa Rodvian, District 6. I would just like to add, even though there may not be citations, there definitely is a public perception of cyclists and their behavior. And so having a law that supports the behavior of cyclists, and I think a lot of folks here know that I'm a regular cyclist, although usually in the city limits and not in the county. There are definitely places where I would not dare to drive in between a bunch of large box trucks on the street where I feel much safer on the sidewalk. So I think having that support of the law makes cyclists feel more comfortable and hopefully less judged and better understood by drivers and other folks using transportation of various types.
Anyone else? Seeing none. We do have an amendment. Madam Secretary, please read amendment number 1.
Amendment number 1. This technical amendment corrects the form of the word public being added in reference to sidewalks.
And the sponsor of this would be the administration, but I'm sure you don't mind if we just go ahead and move to adopt. Is there a motion to adopt?
For the benefit of the public, motion to adopt.
And a second?
Second.
Does anyone have anything to say? Not looking like it. Okay. Madam Secretary, please call the roll on amendment number 1.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Aye.
Mr. Pruski.
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Hare.
Aye.
Ms. Lacey.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Amendment number 1 is adopted.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, please read amendment number 2.
Amendment number 2. This amendment provides that the Director of the Department of Public Works may prohibit riding bicycles, play vehicles, or unicycles on certain sidewalks if it is in the interest of public safety.
Ms. Fiedler, this is your amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, so when I initially reviewed the legislation, it just stood out as awkward to me that the county executive would make the determination when I know whenever there is an issue with sidewalks or roads in my district, and I'm assuming in other districts, we go to the great people in DPW and traffic safety and engineering. So it made more sense to me to be consistent with how we address these matters by identifying the Director of the Department of Public Works.
Is there a motion to adopt?
Hare, so moved.
And a second?
Second.
All right. And Mr. Trumbauer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chris Trumbauer for the administration. We have no opposition to this. I think the intent was obviously just to have the administration have the ability to do that, whether it's the county executive that's named or the Director of Public Works. It doesn't matter. There's no practical impact. But we're happy to do this. It will mean that the bill will have to come back in 2 weeks, but I don't think that's a problem. So we're here with no opposition.
Any comments?
Madam Chair, if I
Ms.
may.
Pickard.
Does it matter that we're now naming a director rather than the overarching administration? I mean, I don't know.
Chris Trumbauer for the administration. My understanding is that it doesn't really matter. There are other provisions in the code that allow the planning director to make decisions or the directors of other to do it. The intent was always that the administration will affirm which sidewalks are unsafe to ride on, and I'm sure that if it was the county executive that was named, he would consult with the DPW director, and I'm sure if it's the DPW director, he'll consult with the county executive, so we're fine with it. No issue from our end, and I don't see Ms. Glassmeyer jumping up to disagree with me, so I think we're good.
Excellent. Anyone else? Your flag's not up, right? No. Okay. Madam Secretary, please call the roll on amendment number 2.
Madam Chair, was there a motion to adopt?
Yes.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Aye.
Mr. Pruski.
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Hare.
Aye.
Ms. Lacey.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. The amendment number 2 is adopted.
Thank you. Bill number 5921, as amended, will be heard on July 19th, 2021. Moving on, Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 6021.
Bill number 6021, an ordinance concerning general provisions, miscellaneous provisions, public-private partnerships.
Ms. Hare, this is your bill. You have the floor first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a pretty quick bill. We've had a lot of discussion recently on the kind of concept of public-private partnerships, and it's not actually sort of expressly stated or encouraged in our code, although we do have the ability to enter into them now. So this very plainly encourages the use of public-private partnerships when it is in the best interests of the county, which, as I mentioned, is sort of current practice, but not explicitly stated. And so I think it would be an important statement just for the public to be able to see that that is the practice of the county. With that, I ask for your support.
Mr. Trumbauer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chris Trumbauer for the administration. County administration has no opposition to this bill. It doesn't really do a lot. I mean, it is helpful to define public-private partnerships, but as the sponsor said, it kind of codifies current practice. We are pursuing some public-private partnerships. We're doing so very deliberately and very thoughtful because obviously there are a lot of components that need to be considered. We want to make sure that they're done appropriately and done at arm's length. But we see no harm in in putting this in the code just to show that Anne Arundel is open for business for public-private partnerships, so the administration supports the bill.
Ms. Rodvian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Lisa Radvian, District 6. This might be a question for Office of Law. So I'm just curious, the standard in here is in the best interest of the county, and I'm curious if there would be some situation where a private entity might desire a public-private partnership and the county were choosing to go a different direction. Is there any legal ramifications of that definition and possible differences of interpretation?
Lori Blair Klassmeyer, Deputy County Attorney. No. The best interest of the county would be made with a public-private partnership, probably either by the purchasing agent or perhaps through economic development or some other agency that might be administering such a public-private partnership. And that is totally the choice of the county or EDC.
I have a follow-up question on that. Is this paragraph B considered purely aspirational language then?
Lori Blair Klassmeyer, Deputy County Attorney. I printed this out earlier and apparently left it in my office, but I believe it says that it's not mandatory, if I remember correctly. It is, thank you. Maximizing opportunities when feasible. So it is not required. It is aspirational.
Thank you. Ms. Hare.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just going to say that I spoke to Mr. Swain about this, and that best interest of the county was his language for that reason.
Thank you. Sorry.
Mr. Volke?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Does this open up the county to any kind of legal liability if there was some sort of project and you had somebody come in and the county chose not to do a public-private partnership, and then the person who was not part of that says, well, I feel like I've been wronged, and now this creates litigation from that standpoint?
In other words, a private entity thinks they could have done a better job or done something.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not unless there's a contract entered into that somehow the county would breach a contract. How the county handles its projects and what it does is up to the county.
Madam Chair, can I add something to that?
Mr. Trumbauer.
Thank you. Chris Trumbauer for the administration. So, Mr. Volge, that is something that the administration did consider, and I think all things being equal, I agree with Ms. Blair Klassmeyer, but the fact is that this will now be in the code, so it could be cited by someone who wanted to make an issue. And, the same general statement could be made supporting public-private partnerships as a resolution or something else that would be a formal kind of aspirational support without putting it in the code, which would address that concern. But either way, we'll stand by Ms. Blair Klassmeyer in saying the risk is minimal.
Ms. Pickard?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We passed a bill a month or so ago regarding the Resilience Authority, which will maximize public-private partnerships in the county. It seems like that's the kind of legislation that is more meaningful. That being said, to me, there's no real reason to vote for this and codify it. There's no real reason to vote against it. It seems like it could have been done as a resolution and/or a tweet or a campaign brochure, but it seems benign enough to me based on what the Office of Law has testified to today, so,
We'll now open the public hearing on Bill number 6021. Madam Secretary, do we have any testimony received from members of the public?
No, Madam Chair, we did not receive any submissions of testimony ahead of time.
All right, we do not have any signups. Does anyone wish to speak on the bill? Seeing none, the public hearing on Bill number 6021 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 6021.
Bill number 6021, an ordinance concerning general provisions, miscellaneous provisions, public-private partnerships.
Any other comments or questions? All right, I'll make a comment. I think it's the fact that this section B is aspirational. I think it reflects policy that if we were just talking about policy, this would be a 7-0 vote and we all agree. I don't know that it's necessary to make this particular bill a political statement. I support it. I don't know that I'll vote for it. I would support it and I might vote for it. I don't know. We'll see when you get to me. But I don't think it actually takes action. And in that sense, I would agree with my colleague, Ms. Pickard, that a resolution would have been appropriate. So with that, Ms. Hare, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Look, I certainly don't mean this as a political statement one way or the other. We had a lot of conversation during the discussion on the Resilience Authority about this concept of public-private partnerships, and it seemed to me like, in general, there's not a lot of information in the general public about what the county is doing for public-private partnerships or not. I think this is just a helpful code provision to encourage its use. I hope everyone will support it. As Mr. Trumbauer said, I think it shows, an openness to that type of business. I don't think it is not intended to be anything other than that. And so for those reasons, I hope that everyone will support this and that it will have an effect of helping the public understand that this is a tool that the county can avail itself of and does avail itself of, and that's that.
Seeing no other flags. No calling of Madam Chairs. Okay. Madam Secretary, please call the roll on Bill number 6021.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volke.
Aye.
Mr. Pruski.
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Ms. Radvian.
Aye.
Ms. Hare.
Aye.
Ms. Lacey.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Bill number 6021 is passed.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 6121.
Bill number 6121, an ordinance concerning zoning, outdoor lighting in non-residential and residential zoning districts.
Mr. Volke, this is your bill. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nathan Volke. Geez, old habits die hard. All right. So this bill actually was not something that I was seeking out, but a constituent reached out to me because of a situation that he had, and he's actually here this evening, and I expect he'll testify in support of the bill. I've heard from some other folks who would like to see this bill actually go farther than it currently does, but this was more or less the place that we could get with respect to inspections and permits and law and Office of Planning and Zoning, such that we at least took the first step toward recognizing that there is the idea of light pollution, that we should have some kind of a light pollution ordinance. But this is a very, I'll admit this is a very limited light pollution ordinance. It could be much sturdier if we wanted to go down that path, and there are ways to do that, and I've looked at some model ordinances from other places. I don't think that we have the appetite to do that in this county just yet. Maybe we will as we move forward, and I don't say that casting any aspersions on any of the administration folks. I think you've worked with us as well as we could have asked you to. But with that said, this I think at least takes the first step toward, as I said, recognizing light as a source of pollution, and it further will at least help to address address some of the concerns that I've heard from one of my constituents about some light-related issues that he's having at his home, and that I believe others in the county are probably having as well, where lights are being directed sort of straight at other properties. This will direct that the light needs to be directed downward, and that you really have to be cognizant of where light is going. So with that, I would ask my colleagues to consider this and hopefully support it in adoption. There is one technical amendment. There was a typographical error in the bill, so at the appropriate time, I'll make a motion that that be adopted.
Mr. Trumpbauer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chris Trumpbauer for the administration, joined at the table by Lynn Miller from OPZ and Kelly Kenny from Law, and we've promoted Steve up to the big table. Our planning director, Stephen Kai Ziegler, is with us. They're happy to answer any questions, but I want to take a moment to thank the sponsors on their communication and working with staff to address several of concerns. I think the administration supports the bill. We're happy with the current posture of it. We agree with the sponsor. We could do potentially more, but this is a good first step. And our understanding is this is modeled after something that was already passed and implemented in Howard County and seems to be successful. So we're happy to support the bill. I'll offer a chance for any of my colleagues to make comments, or we'll stand ready for questions.
Are there any questions at this time? Okay, well then we will now open the public hearing on Bill number 6121. Madam Secretary, do we have any testimony received from members of the public?
Yes, Madam Chair, we did receive 2 submissions of testimony. One was emailed, one was submitted through the online testimony tool. They have both been posted to the website and added to the record.
Thank you. And we do have one person signed up, Mr. Jacob Fronapple. Please come to the podium and state your name, hopefully with the correct pronunciation, and your address, and you'll have 2 minutes.
Yes, you did get it correct, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Good evening, council members. I'm really just here. Jacob Fronapple, 1205 Sedge Court, Pasadena, Maryland. I'm just here to show my support and my gratitude to Mr. Volke for introducing it and drafting this proposal. The light issue that I'm confronting with my property, I assume is not unique in a county that seems to have grown in some areas from a more rural environment to one that's kind of more suburban, at least in my situation, where when I went to talk to the neighbor in question, she said, "Oh, this has been like this for forever, 30 years, and nobody's mentioned this." And I said, it was very bright light, and I'd like to get something done other than having to pursue it through the court system. So that's really all I have to say, unless there's any questions for me.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I'm glad we had people show up, Madam Secretary. Would have been awfully lonely without them. Thank you. Do we have anybody else who wishes to speak on Bill 6121? Seeing none, the public hearing on Bill number 6121 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 6121.
Bill number 6121, an ordinance concerning zoning, outdoor lighting in non-residential and residential zoning districts.
Ms. Fiedler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is not a unique situation. I've had some complaints in District 5. Mr. Volke was just a few steps ahead of me, so I was happy to sign on as a co-sponsor.
All right. Well, we do have that technical amendment, so Madam Secretary, please read amendment number 1.
Amendment number 1. This technical amendment corrects a typographical error.
Mr. Volke, is there anything that needs to be said besides motion to adopt?
Motion to adopt.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, please call the roll on amendment number 1.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volke.
Aye.
Mr. Pruski.
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Ms. Radvian.
Aye.
Ms. Hare.
Aye.
Ms. Lacey.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. The amendment 1 is adopted.
Thank you. And because amendment number 1 was a technical amendment, Bill number 6121 as amended can be voted on tonight. Is there any other comment anyone wishes to make? Mr. Volke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to follow up on some of the comments. Just to be clear, this is not intended to be punitive to anyone at this time. I think the intention is kind of more educational and putting something in the code that allows, hopefully, planning and zoning and inspections and permits and others to go out and educate people on sort of light pollution and what's going on. The intent is not really to slap down constituents. So I just want to be clear about that, so this doesn't feel like it's an attack on anybody.
Ms. Pickard.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo the sentiments of my colleague, Ms. Fiedler. Happy to sign on as a co-sponsor, as I've been dealing with this issue in District 2 as well. So we'll see if we can't make some movement for some constituents. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, please call the roll on Bill number 6121 as amended.
Ms. Pickard?
Aye.
Mr. Volkey?
Aye.
Mr. Pruski?
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler?
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian?
As a person who looks to weed out all sorts of pollution, including light pollution, I will vote aye.
Ms. Hare?
Aye.
Ms. Lacey?
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Bill number 6121 as amended is passed.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Please read the title of Bill number 6221.
Bill number 6221, an ordinance concerning subdivision and development, critical area overlay, forest conservation easements.
Ms. Hare, this is your bill. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this bill actually came from a constituent who had given a forest conservation easement to the county in exchange for a permit to construct a specific project, and the financing fell through for the project. The permit was terminated, the project was never built, and when he went to undo the forest conservation easement, there is no mechanism in the code to give it back. And so sort of once you've given it in exchange for your permit, even if you never do anything, you can't get it back. And it's kind of created this awkward situation. So thank you very much to Planning and Zoning for all of the conversations and hard work on this. It looks like there are a few circumstances where this may be an issue or could potentially be an issue. And so all this does is it puts a procedure in the code so that if your permit is canceled entirely, the project is not going to move forward, you can't get financing, something happens, there is a mechanism to get your property back, sort of fee simple. And that's really all this does. Thank you very much.
Mr. Trumbauer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chris Trumbauer for the administration. The administration supports the bill. We'd like to thank the sponsor for working with OPZ and other staff. I'm going to introduce the panel here because they know a lot more about this bill than me and will be much more helpful to you than I will. We've got Lori Rhodes, our Deputy CAO, to my right, Kelly Kinney from Office of Law. We've got Kelly Krinitz from OPZ, and then on standby, we've got Planning Director Stephen Kai Ziegler back in the overflow seating. But perhaps this is a complex issue. It's a known issue that we've been aware of for a few years. And so if there's any additional explanation or questions, I think Ms. Krinitz or Ms. Kenny or even Ms. Rhodes would be much better than me than explaining it.
Well, I'll start. I have a question. So I know that this bill, if we do pass it, it will require the approval of the Critical Area Commission, and so the state's going to have a look at it, and we don't always get things right the first time, and they come back and tell us fix it or whatever. The only question I really have is about where we say, if all permits and plan applications and approvals related to the development have expired, I'm okay with have been terminated and are otherwise null and void, but have expired seems to me like maybe somebody, got into a deal, gave the forest conservation easement, and then let their permits expire, and now they don't like their deal anymore. So I wonder if that specific circumstance should be refined or further addressed, or is that something that the Critical Area Commission might have a comment about?
Hi, Kelly Krenitz with the Critical Area Team. The Commission has seen this language. The original language was a little looser. It was, I think it was project is not going to go forward. That was a little too vague for us, so we tried to include the language for the instances where a project wouldn't go forward. Sometimes the permits would expire or, they're terminated or whatever it is. But what we wanted to make sure is whatever language we put in there ensured that the project couldn't move forward, not just that maybe they weren't going to move forward this year, but they might move forward next year, that the project, the development that they were proposing that was the reason they entered into the easement was not going to go forward in any fashion under those permits or those applications. So new ones would have to come back in later. We would reevaluate, we would re-review, and then we would require easements based on that new project that came in.
Thank you. Mr. Volke, is your flag fresh?
It is.
Okay.
It was stale, but it's fresh now. Thank you. So I have a question about the permits and the plan applications and the approval all being expired. I'm going back in my memory to Quiet Waters when we acquired that property. And one of the issues that I remember from the history on that property is that there had been some kind of a prior approval years and years before that had then subsequently lapsed. And I want to say a decade or more had elapsed between the time when there was some kind of an approval for a subdivision and then they didn't move forward with it. Then ultimately they were trying to revive it, and I know Office of Law was fighting with them. Everybody's looking at me. So my question is, how do you avoid that type of a situation from happening? Like, how do we know when a application or a permit approval has actually fully expired? How do we avoid that situation from coming up? And if I'm completely getting these things conflated, you can tell me that too.
I think that Quiet Waters was more of a private agreement, if I remember correctly. I mean, the county was involved, but it wasn't a recorded easement that's in the land records. That's part of, it's a little bit different type of an agreement. And what would happen here, I honestly don't think that this will get used that often, because rather than extinguishing the easement, if one permit application expired, the next person to come in with a new application could just amend that easement. So you don't really have to go through the process of extinguishing the easement and filing anew. Okay. There are a couple instances where the property owner would want to do that, but I think it's a little bit different type of an agreement than what happened at Quiet Waters.
Thank you.
Ms. Radvian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Lisa Rodby, District 6. So I think my question is maybe a little bit like the inverse. If a property owner offered up an easement in order to go forward with a particular project, the project did not go forward, the permits and everything expired, is there a time limit on how long before they asked? Say they allowed the easement to go forward, and 10 years went by, and then they thought, oh, I'd actually like that easement back. Could they ask for it back after that length of time?
There isn't a time limit in the bill language.
So in theory, they could ask for it back, even though after a period of time, the county might have said, well, the project didn't go forward, but we have this easement, and we expect the easement to be treated in this way. Do you see that as any sort of possible problem?
And not really, because critical area is a little bit different. The way the critical area law is written is that if you clear on a property, all remaining easements or all remaining woodland goes under easement. So if a project expired and then 10 years later, it's always that next project that comes in, we're going to get the easement back. So it would have been protected for 10 years under the easement if the property owner then said, well, I want to withdraw it because I want to sell it or I want a different development. When that comes back in, we'll get another easement to keep it protected. So, you could look at it that's almost preferred to asking to extinguish it right away, because we got 10 years of protection out of it, and they could have asked as soon as the permit expired. So I don't think it's a problem.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up question on that. I realize I know what forest conservation easements are, but I haven't ever paid attention to whether that type of easement gets recorded. And if so, what is the process when you're going to reconvey, as we would be proposing to do here, versus the initial conveyance?
Kelly County Supervising County Attorney. If it was going to be reconveyed back, then we would have to file something in the land records to indicate that, so that it would show up on a title search.
And who would pay for that?
I believe it would be filed by the county in the land records.
For a reconveyance, when it's coming from the owner back to the county?
It's going to
right.
Well, I know initially the county gives. No, it's not coming the other way. Hang on.
Right, the county would.
To the county, then the county back to the owner.
Well, I'm just hoping that there's a circle of payment so that there's a net, so that both sides aren't paying the fee twice. That's all I was asking.
And you're talking about the recording fee? Mm-hmm. Right, if the county records it, there is no fee, as far as I know.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm closing on a house tomorrow. I'm thinking about things like that probably a little too much. Okay. Does anyone else have a question? Ms. Rodvian, is your flag fresh? No, it is stale. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, then I think we are supposed to move on to the public hearing. Correct, Madam Secretary? We will now open the public hearing on Bill number 6221. Madam Secretary, do we have any testimony received from members of the public?
No, Madam Chair. We did not receive any submissions of testimony ahead of time.
And unless we have anyone right now wanting to jump up for 2 minutes to speak, seeing none, the public hearing on Bill number 6221 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 6221.
Bill number 6221, an ordinance concerning subdivision and development, critical area overlay, forest conservation easements.
Last chance for discussion. Seeing none, Madam Secretary, please call the roll on Bill number 6221.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volke.
Aye.
Mr. Pruski.
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Hare.
Aye.
Ms. Lacey.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Bill number 6221 is passed.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, please read the title of resolution number 3021.
Resolution number 3021. Resolution approving the terms and conditions of the acquisition of real property consisting of approximately 14.693 plus or minus acres known as 7180 Heritage Crossing in Glen Burnie, Maryland, 21060 from U.S. Home Corporation, utilizing funds from the Advanced Land Acquisition Capital Project.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Mr. Pruski?
First after them.
Okay. Mr. Trumbauer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chris Trumbauer for the administration. I'm joined at the panel. We've got from Law, Christine Niederer is here. I believe this is Mr. Burke from DPW, and our good friend, Mr. Shaknovich from the Board of Ed, to tell you all about the plans for the property. We may be expecting Ms. Lays. She's coming directly from another obligation, so if she comes, you will see her before me, because my back is to the back, so just tell her to come on up for Rec and Parks. But essentially, this resolution is required because the administration is proposing to acquire property using funds from the Advanced Land Acquisition Project in the capital budget. So there needs to be a council resolution to approve. This concerns 14.7 acres of the Tanyard Spring subdivision in Glen Burnie. It's been identified as an optimal site for a future Board of Education facility, which is the longhand for school. But that need will not come into play for several years, potentially many years, in which case the Department of Rec and Parks has indicated that they can use that property in the meantime for recreational activities, and I believe that we envision playing fields there for some period of time. So that would be phase one, and then phase two, it would potentially be used for Tanyard Elementary or whatever the name will be. The purchase agreement is about $5.1 million. That's based on the independent appraisal, and our distinguished panel can tell you anything more about this that you would like. I'll offer Mr. Shaknovich the chance maybe to explain what the school's interest is, if he's so inclined.
Certainly.
For the record, Alex Shekno, Chief Operating Officer. I do wish Ms. Lays was here, Director of Rec and Parks, because she'll corroborate the following. We worked collaboratively with the Recreation and Parks Department to master plan the project, knowing full well that their recreation master plan shows a deficiency in play fields in this area in the county. So we know that there's a lot of pressure on play fields. Therefore, we've proposed 2 multi-purpose fields, as well as a combination baseball, softball field, hardtop basketball court, a playground, and then a shade shelter. The master planning process collaboratively has the assets positioned such that when the day arrives that a school is contemplated for there, that we are not redoing or undoing any of the hard infrastructure. So we're putting soft surfaces, i.e. the multi-purpose playground facilities where the school will sit. But if you laid a feasibility study side by side, the original parking lot that would be installed by way of examples to support the rec and park activities would be fully reutilized and repurposed for the school, so we wouldn't be taking up an expensive asset. So I think it's a tremendous asset for the county. Near term, it certainly, I believe, resolves one of the deficiencies that the Rec and Parks Department has identified, and longer term identifies a deficiency that we have with school capacity at both the Marley Elementary School and Solly Elementary School. Solly ultimately feeds in through the northeast cluster, and Marley feeds through the Glen Burnie cluster. So two different parts of the county would benefit from this as well. And with that, I conclude my brief remarks.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Jaknovich. And just, Madam Chair, I'll add, I guess, on behalf of Ms. Lays, I'll corroborate on her behalf because I did have the opportunity to speak with her about that. So I will endorse Mr. Jaknovich's comments from the administration for Rec and Parks.
Indeed, she has not yet passed through those doors. We'll let you know. Mr. Pruski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to take a moment because sometimes on the council, each of us have our own parochial interests and we think about, this or that. But this is for the benefit of our school system where we have crowded schools. Many of you recall we just passed West County Elementary, and Tanyard Springs is an area which I'm very familiar with because I've heard from Mr. Volke's constituents, and this is the kind of forward thinking that we need to think about. And I just want to commend the administration for doing this. And I also think there's many opportunities as we go forward into this year for advanced land acquisition, not only for schools, but also for parks and recs. I know Ms. Lays isn't here, but it's very important to point that out, that this is a need. You can't redistrict out of this area. I'm sure Mr. Jaknovich could give you the numbers. There's only so much you can do, and the schools are really, really overcrowded in that area. So I think the citizens are going to benefit. This is great start, and I want to commend everyone for working on this together. Thank you guys so much.
Ms. Pickard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to just ask a question, Mr. Jaknovich. I know Ms. Lays isn't here. So when you were talking about the Rec and Parks design, so we're talking obviously not turf fields, grass, and that's where the school would go. That's what you just said. I just wanted to confirm that's what you just said. But the hard surfaces would stay, rounding out what would be available at that elementary school.
Yes. Again, Alex Scheckner, Chief Operating Officer for the school district. That is correct. One of the two multi-purpose fields would be converted to the school pad site. Our elementary schools still, however, do have a grass multi-purpose field that will remain for use by the school during the daytime and then the community after hours, weekends, as well as the combination baseball, softball field, the shade shelter, the playground equipment, and the basketball court. It is contemplated will all continue to remain as assets. So the only thing you would lose in transition is one of the two grass play fields.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair, if I may. So is there already any sketch designs in Rec and Parks, or do y'all already have something? I'm asking these questions because I'll be looking for parcels in other parts of the county to do similar things. I just wanted to take a look at them.
Sure. Well, let me take a stab at that first. So we have a product here in Anne Arundel County, to the extent possible and or practicable. We utilize a philosophy of using prototype elementary schools, which have a sort of a repeatable shape form to them. And so whenever we do feasibility studies, and we did collaboratively with Rec and Parks, and it's actually one of the requirements working with DPW to make sure that the property can be utilized fully beneficially for its intended purpose. So we do have that Ms. Pickard, and again, we're using our prototypical elementary school for that footprint. And then we have elementary school educational specifications that itemize the size and shapes of different recreational accoutrements, such as fields, basketball courts, et cetera. So we're using our prototypes. Our prototypes, again, in collaboration with Rec and Parks, work for them. We have a memorandum of understanding that's in place with Rec and Parks. It's annually reauthorized, that we collaborate on all of our ventures to the extent that, again, we're trying to maximize the citizens' benefit, right? We're paying for a asset that we're utilizing not just during the academic day or the academic year, but we're maximizing taxpayers' value out of that by extending the use into the evenings, weekends, holidays, et cetera. So we're always very careful when we're designing these things to make sure that they not only meet the school's ed specs, but our ed specs are coordinated with Ms. Lay's department to make sure that our fields meet their specifications and ours. To the extent that they would, for example, if theirs was 5 foot wider than ours, we would just have made it 5 foot wider to make sure both agencies were fully covered, essentially.
Thank you.
And if I may add, Madam Chair, Chris Trumar for the administration, you'll find in your packet there are 2 conceptual diagrams. So the first shows the anticipated phase 1, which would be all recreational amenities, and then the second one is what it would potentially look like to put the school footprint in place. And you can see what Mr. Shaknovich was referring to. Most of the recreational amenities would remain. There would just be essentially one multi-use field given up to place the school and the bus loop. But again, these are rough conceptual diagrams. I'm sure they'll be updated at the appropriate time.
Mr. Volke?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm very excited about this project because I've been pestering Mr. Shaknovich about this for about 2.5 years. I do have one question, though, about the price. So I just kind of quickly pulled up as we're sitting here a couple of our previous acquisitions that this council has passed through. I'm thinking about West County, which was Resolution 3-20. That Mr. Pruski mentioned, and in that particular situation, I think we picked up 37 acres for a little over $1 million. I'm then thinking about Quiet Waters and what we paid over there for that waterfront property. That I think was about $7.8 million, and we picked up 19 acres. With this being $5.1 million for, I think it was about 10 acres, something like, it was actually a little more than 10, 14, yeah. Just looking at the price, I mean, I think the math I did was like $360,000 an acre. How did we reach that as the fair market value? Were we valuing this as C3 property like it's currently zoned? Were we looking at this as being used something else? Because clearly they haven't been able to build anything on C3, the owners of the property, in the time that they've had it. So I just am curious about the appraised value and how we got to that fair market.
Chief of Right-of-Way for Anne Arundel County, Tom Burke. We had an independent appraisal, so when you say how we came up with it, we hire independent. We totally stay out of the prices because we represent the county and the public. So we had an independent appraisal done. It is zoned commercial, and based on the development coming in there, even the U.S. Homes, we offered them a much lower price earlier on, maybe a year or two ago. They had another appraisal that they submitted to us, and they were unwilling to release it at that appraised value a couple of years ago. So we reapproached them, got another appraisal done, and it came in at 5.1, but based on the commercial zoning, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we will now open the public hearing on resolution number 3021. Madam Secretary, do we have any testimony received from members of the public?
No, Madam Chair, we did not receive any testimony ahead of time.
All right, and if anyone wishes to speak as part of the public hearing, now's the time. Seeing no one, the public hearing on resolution number 3021 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of resolution number 3021.
Resolution number 3021, resolution approving the terms and conditions of the acquisition of real property consisting of approximately 14.693 plus or minus acres, known as 7180 Heritage Crossing in Glen Burnie, Maryland, 21060, from U.S. Home Corporation, utilizing funds from the Advanced Land Acquisition Capital Project.
Is there any further discussion? Mr. Volkey?
Oh, no, that's not me, sorry.
Okay. Then I think we're ready to call the roll, please, Madam Secretary.
Ms. Pickard?
Aye.
Mr. Volkey?
Aye.
Mr. Pruski?
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler?
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian?
Aye.
Ms. Hare?
Aye.
Ms. Lacy?
I will just say I wish it would cost a little less, but I have to, of course, vote for it, and I just wish they would have given us a better deal. So, aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Resolution number 3021 is adopted.
Thank you. Is there any other business to be brought before the County Council at this time? Seeing none, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second, Councilman Pruski.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. The County Council is adjourned until Monday, July 19th at 7 p.m. You can find important information about this meeting on the council website at aacounty.org. Have a good night and safe travels home.